but there's such a enormous amount of depth in the history, into the physical training that I had no idea actually existed.
I think that's one of the most interesting things. The solution which we found to be the most functional, the best for performance. It's really like...
And people were strong as a bull before they ever did one single deadlift or even a back squat.
They would try to rip full trees off the soil.
He prescribed physical exercise as a remedy for people who had sicknesses.
So he was like thousands of years ahead of the modern physicians. Because the wrestling is actually, it's the base of all martial arts. It's the base for fitness and physicality actually. That's like how the cats and how the animals fight.
Even if you don't do wrestling, you can get similar type of result.
I have felt real depression. I used to drink coffee for really excessive amounts.
Me too.
Yeah, and you too. And when I quit coffee,
it's like the nature for you to actually grow as a human being and grow in your core and grow to something great, something really like that you can be proud of, right? But if you don't give it the space and you just... So this time for this special podcast, I brought a very special book. This is from Galen of Pergamon. And why I brought this here is actually that this Galen is one of the rare and the most detailed sources into the health, fitness and exercises during the Roman Empire, during the time of the Roman Empire. And what also makes this Galen very special, I will show this book, is that he became at one point the court physician for the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who I think is very well-known actually, because he was big on the Stoicism. So many people know him, are a fan of his philosophy.
Yeah, the book Meditations.
Yes, exactly. And he was not only the physician for him, but also for his son, the Commodus. And you probably also seen maybe the Gladiator movie where they presented the Commodus and the Marcus Aurelius, and also of course the Gladiator himself. But when I read about Galen's story, I immediately thought they should make a movie actually of his story, because it was quite incredible, and I think it would make for a really, really interesting story. And I wanted to quickly go it through here because it's very, I think, epic in some ways. So before he became the physician for Marcus Aurelius in the court, he was actually a physician for the gladiators. And the way he became a physician for them was that this was in the old regions of Turkey. So ancient Turkey, there was the Izmir region, and the Pergamon, where he actually is from, Galen of Pergamon is what he's called. So there was the high priest of Asia, who was the wealthiest, one of the most powerful men in that region, really rich guy who had these gladiators. Apparently he owned gladiator school and he needed a physician there. And so he made this test for different doctors that he had there. He took a monkey and he eviscerated the monkey, which this was a new word for me. I didn't know what is eviscerate. It means actually to disembowel. So you take away the intestines from the monkey. Then he gave the monkey to the doctors and he said, fix the monkey, repair it. And all the other doctors, they refused. I don't know why. Maybe they thought that this guy is a bit lunatic. I don't want to work with him. But the Galen guy, he was like, okay, I will take the monkey. And what happened, it didn't actually say whether the monkey survived or not, but it said that he took the monkey, he made a surgical procedure to the monkey. So apparently it was very successful, and this high priest of Asia decided to take him as the physician for these gladiators. And during this time when he was the physician, there was only 5 deaths of the gladiators compared to the previous physician. During of his time there were 60, so 60 deaths in the gladiators. So this guy was pretty remarkable actually as a physician. And from there on he moved to Rome, where he was also treated to be assassinated, because during those times the physicians were very towards magic and divination. It was not rational, look at the evidence, observe. It was not like that, and they felt very threatened about the Galen because he was bringing these new methods. But ultimately it was noticed by his skills and prowess was noticed by the emperor, so he became the physician. But yes, as I mentioned, why I'm talking about this person, because he was not just a physician. He was actually, especially I think during the gladiator, when he was physician for the gladiators, he learned a lot about their also fitness regimes, fitness training. I think, and he did like medical procedures for so many people, like even like athletes also. And in the book, it was very fascinating because actually going now a little bit towards this state to our like explorations into fitness. So the reason why even first place we started to get more into the history of training was because we started to lately utilize certain training equipment that we didn't really even know that they had this kind of training history behind them. We have, of course, like we talk about many times, Qigong, thousands of years of history, we already know this. We talk about it. We also talk about the old school bodybuilders, the Bronze Era bodybuilders, like they're, over 100 years of history also with those. But there's such a enormous amount of depth in the history, into the physical training that I had no idea actually existed. And it only came evident for me once we started to use these maces and sandbags and clubs. And I started just like digging really to the history and noticed that these methods that we actually figure out now during this time and day, they were actually very, very prevalent, like formally used in training for actually a millennia. And not just in these, Kung Fu or the Eastern cultures like India and China, but also even in the Western region.
Yeah, like Eero said, that when we first started utilizing the maces and clubs, like we didn't know almost anything about the history. At least I didn't. So we.
I just knew that they were used in India.
Yeah, I knew like Indian club
that's
from
it.
the name,
Yeah.
but the mace, like the steel mace, when I first saw it, I didn't know anything about the history. I had seen maybe the Gada before, like very quickly.
But I didn't connect it actually, even that the Gada was the mace.
Yeah, me neither. But the reason we started utilizing the mace and the club was because we discovered the effectiveness of the tool. So we first started to like explore the tool and utilize it in different ways, and then it just became more and more effective for our purposes. So that was the main reason. So we, like, people maybe think that we go to the history to find different knowledge and different wisdom, and sometimes we do it.
Yeah,
for
of course.
Example, for example, in terms of Qigong, we have done it a lot, but usually we just try to find the most effective solution for the problem we are experiencing right now. And recently, the clubs and maces offered the best tool to get the results we were looking for. And after the fact, we went to history and we discovered, okay, these tools has been used for thousands of years. And even in India, the clubs and Gada, they have like 2,000 years of history and like this.
Yeah, I was most surprised about really also the Western aspect of it, because yes, in India, yeah, we can actually first talk about even a little bit about that. So, I think it's for me, it's difficult to find sources even this matter. If you find that, or if you search for it, you find that it's at least 2,000 years old, but it seems that it's a lot actually older than that. And what happened is actually one of my reels it went viral, and it caused like a real war in the comment section, because the clubs have history both in India and also in the Iran, so ancient Persia. And these people, for me, I mean, I don't have this emotional attachment to it, so I don't really care where does it originally come from. But the interesting thing about this debate that was on there, with like where does it originate from? Everyone was like really throwing out these sources here and there. So I have no idea how relevant they actually are. But based on this type of comments that I saw there, it's very well known, of course, in these regions in Iran and in India, that they have incredibly long history, and there might be much older than 2,000-year-old sources. Like even these statues, maybe from 5,000 years ago, where they depict the god Hanuman with his gada. So if they depicted the god Hanuman with the gada, they probably were also training with that even during those times. But the surprise was that I first went to this direction, to the Indian culture, like look for that, because we were training with the mace and gada. But then once we got also more into the sandbag and even the rope training, people only think like rope training, okay, rope climb, regular rope climb, but we developed like an entire methodology of training with the rope that consists a lot of other things also than just the climbing. But the rope climb and the sandbag also led me to search a little bit different cultures as well. I mean, we can see long traditions with like rock lifting in the Icelandic culture, in the Scotland culture. They like competitions about those. There's also there's these like huge stones they found in somewhere in the ancient Greek region, and the stone has like a text. This was lifted by that and that person. So of course, the stone lifting, sandbag lifting. I noticed there are like also in ancient Egypt, and especially the just the depth of knowledge also in the Western cultures, which I had no idea about, because we talk often about Qigong and how deep that really is. This is why we even also focused on that a lot, because we just noticed the amount of detail in the training that they had was like incredible. Like it's not just the complexity of their movements, like how multidimensional the movements were, but it was also the different aspects on the quality of the training. Like you have soft training, you can have hard training, you can have loose training, you can have it's unbelievably sophisticated world of training. And when I start to read, for example, the Galen, I really figured out that this guy also, he writes in such elaborate terms about training, and not just about training, but also about, for example, massaging the body, about recognizing, he categorizes like training into relaxed training, vigorous training, violent training, like all of these different type of training styles, and then he like determines like which kind of training should a person do based on his age, based on his physical background, based on the health of his body, based on the quality of the air, and it's like incredibly elaborate stuff that you can actually find from history. And this was really remarkable, together with, of course, utilizing this type of equipment and methods that we also use in the modern days.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about Iron King method is that because recently we really needed to discover the best ways to develop the grip strength, the forearms, the arms, and just have the most functional raw performance and functional strength. And as a result, we discovered mace and clubs, and then we discovered sandbag, and then we discovered rope, and then also the very old school bodybuilding methods with the barbells and some very basic weights. But we didn't people think it's Iron King method is like a historical ancient product, but first and foremost, it was like very practical solution to develop very functional physique. And after the fact, we discovered all this stuff is very ancient. So I think that's one of the most interesting thing about it is that the solution which we found to be the most functional and the best for performance, it's really thousands of years old, and it's not the modern part at all.
No, and it's just like how these guys emphasized functionality. Like if you look at the training, everything was geared towards the athletic sports, which in those days consisted of also MMA. I mean, those days, the ancient Greek, they had what is the pancreas? I'm not sure if I pronounce it.
Yeah, the pancreas is the MMA of the history.
It was
also
actual real
wrestling.
Real MMA, consisted boxing and the wrestling, and I think kicking and grappling and submissions also. From when you look at the statues or something, they have these locks and stuff like that.
What's also interesting is that most Kung Fu is actually wrestling. If you really go deep into different styles, it's actually wrestling. But somehow the wrestling aspect, apart from the Sui Jiao style, has been kind of lost in many different Kung Fu styles. But if you really look deeply into the style, they have really wrestling techniques, even Tai Chi and all this stuff. But nowadays, they just look striking. They just look stand-up martial arts. But in reality, they have so much wrestling inside of them, because the wrestling is it's the base of all martial arts. It's the base for fitness and physicality, actually, because that's how the cats and how the animals
fight.
Fight. So the grappling is really the most fundamental martial art.
Yeah, lions and cats, they don't strike each other. Or maybe there are some paw strikes, but it's mostly looks like resembles wrestling.
Yeah, it is there's take
they grab each other.
Yeah, they grab
even gorillas.
No,
like
even
to-
when they catch the predators, they catch the when they catch the
hunting.
prey. When they were hunting the prey, they catch the prey and then they just go for the kill.
Yeah, what is that? It's wrestling.
It is wrestling and
That's a good
grappling.
point,
It's
yeah.
like you go, you lock down the prey.
You submit it.
and then you submit it. You either strangle it or with your like.
Yeah, but they use the mouth, but
Your mouth, but yeah, but like in the past, I used to read this, and even today, the 72 skills of Shaolin. Like, because you know the wisdom and knowledge of Shaolin Temple is incredibly vast and immense. It's like there's so much stuff people don't even know about, and a lot of it is in Mandarin Chinese or Cantonese Chinese, or and it's not even easy to get access to, because most of it, like the English translations, are very bad and they're very hard to find, and a lot of it is not even in English. So that's why the Grandmaster Chiang Yu-Shang's Qigong from Taiwan and Kung Fu is very unique, because it's been around only in the
region.
only in the region, in the native language.
And only within the very tight communities of the...
And yes, but the very interesting about even the Shaolin Temple and the Shaolin monks is that in their like the 72 skills of Shaolin book, the book is full of like exercises for the forearms and grip, and not only that, they also have like sandbag exercises, like, and back then they didn't just fill the sand bags with sand; they also filled them with like rocks and sometimes even with iron balls. So you can imagine like how heavy the bag is when it's filled with like iron like balls, and how hard is it to move when they actually throw it from one person to another. And not only that, what's also very interesting about the Shaolin methods is that they would try to like rip full trees off the soil. Like they would take like the body log or something like this from the tree and then try to lift it up from the ground. And they would do it many times per day. So they wouldn't be even able to lift it off in their first try. So they would do it many times per day for 3 years straight. And maybe someday they would be able to lift the tree off the ground.
Because it's hard to say, is this more like a legend? Because of course some of these are, but
many
it's
of them,
based on some kind of truth.
Many of them are legends, but still there's lots of truth in it. And it's like isometric strength.
It is,
and if you just take a smaller tree and then you just try to pull it every day, many times per day for 3 years straight, maybe at some point it starts to move a little bit. And then after a while, you can actually take it off.
Yeah, and if not the tree doesn't come off, at least the objects that do move will move easier. Because if then you grab another person and you will just like lift him up, it makes a difference. But that's incredible. Like this, these kung fu guys and the pictures that also you show them, because I find that nowadays the modern fitness culture, I feel like most people do think that it's very modern. We do this like lateral raises or front raises and some curls and stuff, and we think that it's modern. And it's no wonder, of course, very few people like look into the history anyway. So why would you even search the history of training? But when you look at it, they actually had these exercises for a millennia, like literally, and in multiple different cultures.
Because in the Shaolin Temple, they had this. They would hang sandbags from some ceiling with ropes, and they would do like these lateral rise exercises with the bags on their shoulders. So it was like a very primitive like machine or like a cable stuff.
Not even so primitive in some ways.
Yeah, it is, but still,
yeah, it is.
Because of those, they also had, the punching bags and for kicks, and they would also lift those things up and down.
Yeah. Actually, this lifting up, this also I think is a really big thing, because deadlift is a huge thing, right? It's super popular, and people who deadlift a lot nowadays, right? They're like small heroes like the Thor and who is the other one? Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, yeah, that was his name, yeah. But these strongmen, right? They lift huge weights, and people are like comparing their results and lifting these barbells. But if we also look at that, barbell is, the very earliest forms of barbell are like, what I think I checked there, like from the 60s or something, so they're over 100 years, well over 100 years old.
150. Or
Yeah,
less than
150.
years.
But even the modern versions of the barbell first started to came like maybe 120 years ago or something. So that is like, it only came then, and people were strong as a bull way before that, before they ever did one single deadlift or even a back squat. And so they had other means for that, which I think we've completely forgotten. And what really woke me up to this realization was when we started to do real the sandbag training, because it was so powerful. Like the results from the sandbag training that I gained into my actually core strength, into my grip strength, even into my leg strength. My hips changed because I started training with the sandbag, and which also why it's even in the Iron King method. It's one of the centerpieces of equipment there. But the sandbag is, of course, one example of a burden. You can, even in this book and in some other areas, you find this depiction where people they carried burdens for exercise, not just as a work. Of course, if you have a slave and he's carrying burdens, you could say he's training. But they did it not just as a form of work, but really as a form of a conscious exercise. Even carrying burdens uphill, like walking uphill, they not only used sandbags, they used the rocks, they also used other people for this. So they are very like elaborate wrestling drills where they describe, they grab another person from they say loins, I suppose it's from the waist, you lift it up and then you just carry with that person. I think this kind of training we can even see in the modern actually wrestling gyms, because they have a lot of partner drills. But the idea here, we think about this barbell and like that's the epitome of strength, I think, nowadays. That is really what it is, and even that we can thank from that the silver era guys who popularized it. Of course, there's the dumbbell and everything, but I think barbell became this like symbol of training in certain ways. But when we go long before the history, the barbell didn't exist. There was only this kind of uneven weights. You had the rocks, you had the sandbags, you had the ropes, and also what I saw,
clubs and maces.
Yeah, the clubs and maces, like all of this stuff that we actually have in the Iron King. And any kind of like heavy equipment. I also saw a photo which was in a Renaissance time book. Also, I think a very a very good book on the exercises and gymnastics of that time, where they have pictures where they're like lifting this really like this square big block. I don't know if it's like iron or stone, but they're lifting that and like doing core rotations with that. They had like both wooden and even stone dumbbells during those times. So it's really, I say, evolved also during those times. But the big, I think, part of the strength that these guys have was actually really carrying objects, because it's almost like intuitive. It's both functional, but it's also aids you whether you're in fighting, even in military, in wrestling, even if you're an athlete,
and agriculture,
or everything.
Agriculture.
It was like
daily life.
So it was so tied into the functionality. It was almost, you could say that training and fitness was also almost inseparable from functionality. I would say, actually.
Yeah, I would say the strength and like the wrestling is one of the first forms of strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And if anyone has done wrestling, it's like incredible for building strength and even size and conditioning and cardio and everything, because it's very tough sport.
Yeah, actually, I do nothing else, and it would like.
Yeah, even if you did nothing else, you would develop very strong body everywhere in the body, because
it may not be the healthiest, but
not maybe the healthiest and not the most like balanced, but it still would be like incredibly strong.
Yes.
Like if you look at wrestlers today, they're like super thick everywhere, and their hips and back and like upper back and lower back and arms, everything is just massive.
Yeah.
And they're like incredible athletes, because in wrestling, these guys, they are like, it's one person's strength against another and one person's athleticism against another, because wrestling it's very technical, but it's nothing like BJJ, like grappling. It's more about like athleticism and strength and speed and power. So that's why it's really one of the best forms of strength training.
It is, and you mentioned like the wrestling was probably the one of the oldest. Maybe it could be like the oldest. In some
because
ways.
if you look at even like how animals develop, they wrestle.
Yeah.
As
Even
like
as
cubs.
kids, even as cubs, like lion cubs or something.
Yeah, and actually, and it's very natural for some small kids also.
I wrestled with my little brother. It's like, and I even wrestled with my schoolmates, but it was because we got inspiration from the WWE. But
Same here. Like for me, like I was just following John Cena and all this Batista and all these guys and wrestling like all day with my friends.
Because I think it's such a primordial way of like you submit another person, you put him down, and you like press his shoulders to the ground. It's like that's like the domination. You're the alpha,
and you are the champion.
Yeah, you're the champion. Like you literally like press the guy down, and he can't escape there. So, but even related to this, what we talk about the clubs and mazes, this was the major tool for the wrestlers in the Indian culture, and even the Hanuman is like the Hanuman god, which is a monkey god. It was like that is the god that they have in the wrestling schools, as far as I understood. That is what they worship there, and it had the gada, right? So yeah, the wrestling is really strongly tied into all of this, and even the strength feats from the Greek era. We have, of course, there was many sports like even just the running and the long jump, and I mean most Olympic sports that you find even nowadays. But the wrestling was a huge part there, and there was the famous wrestler like Milo of Croton, who also describes about his strength feats and how he trains his grip, how he interlocks his fingers, or he's holding like a grenade. Pomegranate, he's holding it like this way, and other people try to take it from his arm, and they're never successful. He just has such a strong grip. And also he talks about these wrestling positions and clips and what he has there. But I think the wrestling is just so strongly tied into the physical history. Actually, now that I think about it, it's really in the heart of it. It's in every single culture probably had. Even in Africa, I think they have like wrestling sports.
Yeah, of course they have lots of.
And the sumo wrestling, and
and even this Galen book, which was who was the physician for the Marcus Aurelius. Even he had like some basic exercise routines, and they had wrestling techniques.
Yeah.
They're like carrying other person, or somebody takes a body lock from behind, and then you try to break the grip.
Yep.
Like some very basic wrestling techniques and wrestling scenarios. And it was not entirety, but a part of the exercise routine for like normal people.
Yeah, this is actually what I didn't yet find out properly. Like how much was all this training part for the regular person? How much was it for the athletes? But it says also, I haven't, like the thing is, it's actually a bit tedious to read at times. He's very, he was also a philosophist, so the text is like sometimes difficult, I will tell you, and you need to find like the places here. But so I haven't yet finished the book, but I noticed he was also writing about that he prescribed physical exercise as a remedy for people who had sicknesses. And he mentioned that he was able to cure many people with that.
Yes.
So that's also like incredible for me. So
so he was like thousands of years ahead of the modern physicians.
Yeah, exactly. At least 2,000 years, I suppose.
Yes.
I mean, it was, when was it? It was like on the it's a 129 AD. So that's, I think it's
after.
Yeah, after. So it's the common era. So somewhere 100 to 200 common era. So it's a little bit less than 2,000 years ago. But yeah, this it's just remarkable to find this stuff. And like you mentioned, we didn't know. We had no idea about that this was even historic training. It was simple, like you said. We got into it. Well, there wasn't really. I wasn't actually, when I took on the maze training, I wasn't looking even for a solution or everything to anything. It was out of curiosity, because I just had to try it, and then I was like blown away. Like, holy, wow, why didn't I use this before? But it does make sense that it was used by, you know, we can even talk about more about this history, you know, because the principle of the mace, what is the principle is that you are utilizing an equipment that it looks or it resembles an actual weapon, right? So people were utilizing the weapons in the war, like these actual like war maces.
Or agricultural tools. Also.
Oh, yeah, or even agricultural tools. But the principle that is behind the whole thing is that you utilize, for training, you utilize a similar equipment that is just heavier of weight. And this same principle also is utilized in other cultures than just Indian cultures. But they didn't use mace. They utilized weighted swords. So they had swords that were at least like twice as heavy, you know, and swinging those about, I think you will get a very similar type of benefits to the mace and clubs, at least the gripping strength. So maybe they didn't do the same shoulder movements and such, but it's still like you get that unbelievable strength in the forearms. And I really started to think about this, like that even during the Roman times, when they had a war and they had the legion and they had the group there, right, those battles might have lasted for like really for hours. So think about the endurance that you need for your grip. It's insane. Yeah, for days. Of course, I think what they did, they rotated the front line. So when the first line got tired, then there's the a fresh line will come and replace them. But still, like if you're there and you start to be like tired grip, you're in trouble.
But only in the case of 300 Spartans, they would fight forever, non-stop, no fresh people, only 300 guys fighting non-stop.
Yeah, and they used spears, which also has probably quite thick. And I mean, even carrying just a shield, anything that you were carrying, you needed the grip and strong arms. Because isn't the basis.
And the armor, of course, was very heavy as well, especially in the medieval times. And in the medieval times, because we have found lots of like pictures and information that they also used the ropes for many different exercises. And so even the rope, of course, it has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And it has been a very effective part of the training.
Yeah, the rope was also, because our theme was, you know, to develop the grip, but of course, oftentimes when you develop the grip, even with the rope training, a lot of other areas get developed as well. You know, same with the mace and clubs. Like we talk about the grip, but my entire arms like grew with the training.
Like we have spoken a lot about the benefits of like training with maces and sandbags, and like all of it trains the whole body, but it really starts from the arms and grip. Because without the grip and arms, you have really nothing. Yeah, if you cannot hold on to something, then the rest of the body is useful for nothing.
Yeah, like what I talk about in the video is like this is the connection part. Like it's like literally you create a bond with objects. You know, it can be just a glass of water, or a book, or whatever. But in a fighting situation, you create a bond with another person, and that is based on your grip. And the grip can be different things. It can be, you know, your like just this way, or like this kind of claw, or you know, just grabbing properly, or it can be the two arm. This is also what people don't realize, how versatile grip is. It's, you know, all of these different things that you can
and even without connecting.
Even without connecting, actually. True. It's just like carrying this way, right?
Yeah, that's grip also. And many different positions also. Especially with the sandbag, you can train all these different styles of grip very effectively, almost better than with any other.
Maybe we even already talk about even that, but I think one of why the grip has such a strong impact on the bit of everything, and for example the rope climb, why it was so popular, even like you said, you know, it was used. I mean, I read about it even in this book from 2,000 years ago. I read about you know, the medieval times, I think the Renaissance times, and they had also many ways, like they climbed 2 ropes or 1 ropes. And in different ways, so
horizontal rope.
Horizontal, yeah, and even they had this like a drill where you have the ladder and it has the poles like this way, and then on the underside of that, you know, you're climbing. Kind of like you have these ninja monkey competitions nowadays. What are they called? Like I forgot what.
Ninja warrior.
Ninja warrior, yeah. But I think.
And even in India, they had like different pulling systems, whereas there's like some weight on the other end of the rope, and they would just pull it like a cable machine.
You saw like that also.
Yes.
That's really cool. Yeah, yeah. So, but
Because that's very easy to make. Like anyone can create it, even at home. You just take a rope, put some weights on the other end, and then throw it over some pillar or something.
Point. That's actually why I was wondering, because it's pretty simple that you tie something on the other end like a weight. But when I saw some pictures from the Renaissance, like from the 1600s, they lifted other people. Like why did they just put a weight? Why do you have to like row another person? But these people like the partner drills a lot. I feel like, and I also actually like them.
Actually, I think partner drills should make a comeback. Maybe we make a comeback because utilizing the strength of another person in different ways is one of the most functional ways to develop strength. Like it is wrestling, but it is also so hundreds and thousands of other ways you can build the body.
Yes. But this is the thing, like, okay, if I were to tell you, okay, these are awesome, drills, like to do these partner drills, you're just lifting another person, and do wrestling, you get those amazing gains. But the issue is that wrestling is not for everyone, and not everyone's gonna start to do wrestling. It's a hard sport, and it's very like, it's not something that I think everyone will do. But that's why I also think why it's so great to have this Sandbag, mace club, rope climb, old school bodybuilding stuff, because even if you don't do wrestling, you can get similar type of results.
Oh, better actually.
In some case, better, yes. You won't become a wrestler though. You won't become you won't learn the actual skills of the wrestling, but you will develop these similar type of muscles, and probably also to an extent in a more balanced way, because actually you're doing mindful exercises. You're not just scrambling with another person, but you're doing like really systematic formal training, and also you have a lot of elements that would not even be in the wrestling. Like wrestlers generally don't even do old school bodybuilding stuff that we do, like the rib cage expansion and all of this. But I really feel like I was kind of lost there, but I was talking about still the grip, and why I think is it was so emphasized, and why it is actually so beneficial to everything is the nervous system also. It's just like it is so tied into how you literally use your mind to crush something. Like even in the morning times, if you squeeze your hand, this like I have hard time squeezing sometimes to a fist in the morning, because the nerves system is so just still sleeping. And
even today, like the grip strength is one of the best indicators for central nervous system recovery. So if you have very poor grip strength on some days, it means like you need to recover. If you are really strong grip strength on other days, then it means like you're fresh. So it's a very good indicator. And also there's lots of studies and lots of knowledge about how grip strength is tied to your aging and longevity, and how well it's connected to your cognitive decline when you age and get older and so on. So actually it's like somehow grip and forearms it's just part of our everything.
Yeah, part of everything. Of course, in these studies there's the strong correlation, but it's hard to say like, can they like, let's say you have a person who is like old and he has some problems, and then he starts to train the grip, like does that start to reverse his issues? That's it's still like cannot say, but I would say like almost any type of exercise will help a person who is declining in health or whatever. But I think the grip would still make a big, because I just feel there's a certain connection that comes here, and of course it starts from not just exercise and training, but we as humans, we have the arms are very, very sophisticated in a way, like tools, like to build stuff, to make the most detailed decorations, create art. Nowadays we just use it for this. We just tap in the phone and the computer, video games. But the things that we can create with these, I think it's like amazing appreciation for the arms, or the hands.
But one thing everyone should know is that we are not against modern methods, and we are not against modernity. Like we are not biased in just because we think like ancient stuff is cool. It's not because of that. It's because we just don't find the modern methods useful anymore. Most of them. Some of them we do, but most of the modern stuff we cannot. It's not making us better. It's not making us more athletic, and it's not making us more healthy. So that's why we are just moving all the time more and more towards the ancient stuff and the old school stuff and all this stuff because it just works better. But otherwise, like, I don't really have any bias towards anything. So it's just all about the results, all about health and all about longevity and functionality and athleticism and all about what actually produces the best results without any negative side effects. And the problem with the modern stuff is that it lacks the functionality, it lacks the real purpose which the ancient stuff has. Like I see lots of these personal trainers and bodybuilders and these stuff guys, and they just look nowadays. They start to look off because they have so much muscle mass in certain parts of the body, but then they really have no functionality and no practicality at all. Like the hands and the forearms and even calves and everything, it looks like it's non-existent. And even it just looks like something strange is happening.
Yeah, I mean, and even they can have some muscle mass, even calves or some forearms, but it's like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you can sort of externally look like you have bulk, but even the movement, it's not just like the external, but the quality of their movement just looks off. And like you said, even the physique looks off because it's also the texture. And we talk about the modern, also the drug usage. I think it plays a huge part in the way that people look. And of course, you can never say, oh, this guy is certainly using stuff, but these are bodies and looks that didn't exist when we go back even some dozens of years, or how to say, like maybe 50 years or so.
Yeah.
We didn't see this kind of looks at all. And so...
And we spoke before between us two that like some of these people, they really destroy their physiques for life because they just use so much steroids and they just do the very simplistic machine exercises and some basic weight exercises, and they get incredibly stiff and incredibly just like a big ball of meat, and which cannot really do anything. And and in some ways they're like kind of stuck with the physique after like 10 years when they have like really, of course, maybe it can always be fixed.
To an extent, you can reverse.
Reverse, but it's gonna take longer.
It's gonna sound harsh, but the word that I used or would use is that these people like literally partially ruin their physique. Not necessarily permanently, you can reverse a lot of this stuff, but to an extent that I think is the harsh reality. And people gonna say, let these people do what they want. They're just like, I let them do whatever they want. But this is like this is
the reality.
It is the reality, and we have different methods, and those are the methods that I preach. And like you said, I still try to come to them unbiased. I mean, I am biased towards health. I am biased towards the functionality, towards the health and like real performance. If you want to say like that is towards what I'm biased. So that's why I'm also biased against this type of modern development in the physiques.
But the problem with the modern way of life is also that when these guys, they use lots of steroids and maybe even TRT, and then they are like actually internally not doing well either. Because many times they have heart problems later at life.
Yeah.
And the same with like pills and medications. If you use antidepressants, many of these guys who have been on them for maybe 20 years, then they do suicide or something like this because it's just everything breaks, because you cannot build like anything like permanent and anything healthy on these like artificial structures. You can make it last longer and longer, but sometimes it's going to break, and in many instances, like but if you think about like the natural mind and the natural physique, it's very organic and it adapts, and it can
I think this is what you said, like they may at some point, everything can look good for a lot of people. Things can look good because they I think there's a lot of masses who admire these physiques that I think are nothing to admire for myself, but they have their own audience. So people look at them, oh, this big looks great, I want to be like that, and then one day they collapse and they die, or like you said, some can even do a suicide, because you don't like it's this is not. I think it's not just an opinion or like I want to put these guys down. Like we're better. Like, but like even if you look at them objectively, a lot of these people they are in real like troubles. Like you said, like they have sickness inside, and it's not. It doesn't matter from which angle you look at it. It's not a good thing.
And usually, many of these guys, they find the right path and the right way, but usually it's when they're like 35 years old, 40 years old, or 50 years old.
Yeah.
And when it's already starting to be too late, like in the case of who was the black guy who had the heart attacks?
C.T. Fletcher or no, not him.
No, not him. The another guy.
The other big, really big
influencer.
What was his name?
But anyway, he had like heart attacks at 40 years old.
Oh yeah.
Like one time or two times, and now he's like doing all this Kali muscle. So now he's doing all this detox stuff and like this, and staying away from steroids and staying away from all this unhealthy stuff. And he's just only focusing on health. So most of these people they are forced to choose the right path, but it usually comes when there's already like really big problems like heart attack or other problems, and many times even like some people, even depression maybe.
But that's very
because the reality is that depression doesn't exist for healthy people. It doesn't exist for the healthy mind and the healthy body. It only exists for unhealthy body and mind.
True, that's a good point actually.
Yes.
But yeah, these
and only for the artificial body and mind also. It doesn't exist for the natural.
No, it doesn't. It's a very weird, actually, symptom, or I would say, like to even be depressed. Like it doesn't make sense. It's
many times it's the chemical imbalance.
Yeah, it is.
And it is caused by lifestyle factors and different medications and all the stuff, and all the deterioration of different functions, like even like chemicals in your body and mind. Over time, like over a long period of time.
Yeah, and I'm not talking. I think it's completely normal to have emotions and moods that go up and down. You can always feel temporarily like a little bit
and actually
sad, but
because I have felt real depression because I used to drink coffee for like 5 years and really excessive amounts.
Me too.
Yeah, and you too. And when I quit coffee, like cold turkey, like completely, like no more coffee, no more tea, no more caffeine, then I realized that then for the first month I had like ridiculous like physical withdrawals, like pain everywhere, pain in my neck, pain in my jaw and throat, and pain in my everywhere in the body. But after the first month I had 2 months of depression and apathy. For the first time in my life, like real depression, like no matter what I did, I was feeling really sad and like negative and bad, like really depressed. And I tried to do everything. I tried to do like ice baths and ice showers, and then do exercise and cardio and eat healthy, and nothing worked. For 1 to 2 months, I was just feeling bad and apathy every day.
But you were still like, at least you were active, because
I was still because I believe that the mind is stronger than the body, and I don't need to identify with my emotions and how I feel. But still, for 2 months, I was feeling such negative, sad, and depressed. Like, and I realized, for the first time in my life, I realized that many times it's a chemical imbalance, but it has a cause. It comes from somewhere. But even if you're depressed, you can still do stuff. And many times the time is the answer. You just need to wait.
Yeah, you're right. Like depression is real, but the fact like that people think, where does it come from? It comes from some like whatever. It's just like a sickness that just appears by itself.
Yeah,
that's not the case. Like,
and another way of people say that it's not real at all. That's also a problem, because if you have any chemical like addiction, whether it's nicotine or caffeine or alcohol or antidepressants, if you come off those things, there's so much lack of like dopamine and other serotonin and everything else in your brain. So it takes time for your brain and body to actually start producing it on its own. So it can take months, maybe in some extreme cases even like half a year or 1 year before you actually restore the basic production of your like dopamine and serotonin and everything else levels, like the brain chemicals.
Yeah, that's a tough time to think like, oh, it will just pass, it will just go over, but you know it does.
Yes.
But yeah, it's very tempting to try to get the quick fix, you know, get just a pill that gives you the dopamine back or something like that. But it's not a sustainable way, and it will cause some other imbalances again in the future. So
yeah, that's the problem, because you are like, whether it's TRT or the antidepressants or the amphetamines, like the Adderall, you're just like replacing your natural production with the artificial production. So with the testosterone, you are no longer producing testosterone, you are getting it from the outside. And the same with the like amphetamines, you are no longer producing the dopamine and everything else you need for focus and energy. And instead you get it from the pill. But at some point it's gonna kind of something.
I think it's scary actually.
It's very scary.
I think I've heard like some people who use this, and you know it takes away the depression, but it also takes away like even the joy, like actual like it takes away both extremes. Then you'll just kind of in the middle and just feel like, you know, part of your soul is gone. It's like I don't think it's not a sustainable way of. Yeah, it's better than, you know, really going and you know doing some bad for yourself, but yeah, you need to always try to find the natural way what we're doing. And this time it just, you know, it led us to the history, and it has led us many times there, because that's really where we find this stuff that simply has worked amazingly well. And even like I talk about this book, and you said, you know, that some of these things, they are like, he was like way ahead of his time, way ahead of even some modern people. So you can really find this wisdom there when you go back.
Yeah, the solution is really return to the roots of physicality, return to the basics of even like maybe even survival and the basic necessities and the basic way of life, where is you just get rid of the modern distractions and the modern crutches and the modern addictions, and then you're already like hundreds of times better than before. And the more you focus on the functionality and athleticism and the natural way of life, the more confident you actually become, and the more your self-esteem actually increases. Because I think many of these people who are dependent on this testosterone or Adderall or whatever antidepressants, their self-esteem is actually very low. Because what I discovered from getting rid of caffeine and alcohol and this stuff is that my self-esteem has just increased all the time the more I stay away from this stuff.
Yeah, because you lack the whole core of yourself in some ways. You never increase it.
And they take away, like you said, they take away your soul. Because your self-esteem and how you see yourself and how you see the world and how you trust yourself and how you believe in yourself, it's like it takes, because you're dependent on something outside of yourself. And the more you just lose and lose and lose, like
it's like
parts of your soul.
Whether it's soul or whatever you want to, like you have this like this core entity in yourself,
core confidence, core self-esteem.
It's like it's this, like, you know, this ball here, like you can imagine, and it, if you allow it, it will grow. You know, if you don't try to you know, take some substances and things that would replace it and press it smaller, it would grow, because it has to. It's like the nature for you to actually grow as a human being and grow in your core and grow to something, I think, great, something really like that you can be proud of, right? But if you don't give it the space and you mask the troubles in yourself with these substances, it will never grow, right? So if you take them away, you allow something in your very core to come into being, and that's, I suppose, how it.
Yeah, how I start to see it now is that, imagine if you're like this person who has fake everything, fake life, fake accolades, fake like just everything is fake. It's not real. And it's the same as with if you have the fake testosterone and fake everything. You just feel like something is lacking from you because you are not enough. Like your body is not enough, so you need this external and outside thing to make you better.
And you will always then be feeling like that, because
and the more you become,
because you always subconsciously know that the real stuff is not there. So what? And then you can never feel it with anything else but the real stuff. But yeah, if you're stuck in this kind of vicious cycle, it can go both ways. You can grow stronger from the core, or you can go weaker and just keep adding this fake stuff, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we are finished. Stay strong.